Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to the channel. Now, today is Future Friday. I'm glad you could join me on Future Friday. And Future Friday is when we talk about science fiction, specifically transhumanist types of science fiction, Altered Carbon, The Expanse, transhuman space, and of course, Eclipse phase, and many others. But we also frame our discussions about around a subject that we've talked about all week long. And this week, if you've noticed the thumbnail, is basically, is the dungeon crawl dead? Like, does it apply to science fiction? Like, the dungeon crawl in science fiction, does it work? And on the first cursory glance, I have to say that I think it does. I think it does work. And so, just for a little bit of context, I would like to apply this because there have been some comments left from the other episodes, and I specifically didn't call them out because I think I wanted to save them for today on Future Friday. Okay, so I'm going to set up a scenario, and probably the top three, maybe four dungeon crawls that exist in science fiction that we've seen, and I think we should place them all together. All right. Rickard says, places to never go in science fiction: derelict spaceship stations and habitats. Damn it, Rickard, you got there before I could get there, man. Yeah. Omen says a good example would be Warhammer 40K's RPG's Space Hulk Adventures. Yeah. Oh man, Dead Man brings up Stalker from Warframe. Yeah. Okay, so so for science fiction, when it comes to our typical classic dungeon crawl, it's weird because as much as we went back and forth in, like, say, Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy, whether it works or doesn't work, it's funny how science fiction has kind of grabbed onto it and has kept it, right? If we really think about it. Yeah. And Rickard goes on to say, yeah, also stay the fuck out of Black Ops labs, right? Research posts of any kind, now that I think about it. Yeah. He's like, where shouldn't you go? Any place that has, like, garbled communications and, I don't know, exploded dead bodies in the hallways. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna turn around and get the hell out of here. Yeah, Omen talks about it, like, it even Warhammer 40K. It even has random area and dungeon generators, so you can have random missions, areas, and enemies. Oh man. So, all right. So I'm going to say top 3 or 4. There might be one or two that we can slip in there. All right. So PCs come into they translate into on a starship, or they beam in, or whatever the case may be. They arrive on a location where, of course, communications is difficult because of radiation or neutrinos, background solar flare, some other kind of, like, BS reason why we can't communicate with anyone, right? And then, yeah, Rickard's like, quote, we're just researching this alien life form. What's the worst that can happen? Like, nope. Hey, it's so cute. Let me take my glove off and touch it. Oh, it likes to be tickled. Motherfucker! Yeah, as it rips your arm off, right? Okay, so PCs arrive, and what do we have? We have a derelict space habitat, right? That sent out some kind of either has lost communications, or its orbit is strange, or it's sent out some kind of SOS beacon, but no one's been able to respond. Maybe there have been scans and there's like a weird, undecipherable, like biological life form. And then, of course, we have ourselves, our planet. So we have derelict spaceship slash habitat. We got to have that. And then, uh, now, either of those two could be separated, but essentially they're the same thing. You have a derelict spaceship or a habitat that's large enough to kind of get lost in. Basically big enough to split the party, right? And then you, uh, yeah, oh yeah, Dead Man's like, don't ask why kill the alien, but instead ask why not kill the alien. Yeah, and you always have to have the NPC who's like, we need to save the alien's life despite the fact that it's just killing us all and bursting out of our chests. I don't understand, you know. Uh, so we also have to have something on the ground, like again the lab. Dead Man's like, that's open. Yeah. We have to have a lab or some kind of like, we discovered something out there and brought it back without doing, oh, I don't know, simple basic scientific safety protocols on it. Um, and then we also have to have some kind of like settlement, maybe near an alien artifact or an alien crypt or location where it has strange hallways and odd radiation and sound coming from it and affecting the minds of the crew, kind of thing. So yeah, you got to have a bunch of that. So derelict space habitat, derelict spaceship, uh, empty lab with a bunch of strange recordings and weird, undecipherable biological artifact things hanging around or something that's disappeared. And we also have to have a location as well, maybe a crypt or a fallen spaceship from an alien from a time long ago, or that's been uncovered or something like that. Maybe even, heck, maybe even one of those Stargate, Pandora Gate kind of things where you find the thing, you don't know exactly how it operates, but of course we're going to send a crew of people through it anyway. Ricker says, here really should be a derelict clause in any contract that stipulates that they have to pay double if the mission invites you having to enter something that can be described by the world as derelict or abandoned. Yeah, like, hey, listen. Well, for the movie Aliens, right? They make a couple of comments in the movie Aliens that goes to a bigger world, but they never really describe it. Like the Space Marines that were in Aliens, they were like, "Oh, is this another bug hunt?" And I'm thinking, well, what other bugs were you hunting before this happened, right? Like that. It kind of led itself to there being something else in the wider world. So I think the dungeon crawl, the classic dungeon crawl, fits excellently into science fiction. I mean, for example, how many hazards have we seen? Hazards and obstacles like traps and layers have we seen in science fiction, right? Doors that open and close randomly, the air quality being affected with, like, poisonous gases or flammable fumes. The idea that there's a power plant or radiation or something like that might be a timer out on the horizon, right? Like, oh, we better hit the power plant because it's spiking red, and if we don't get there in 3 days to cool it down, we need to do something. And of course, especially if you've watched anything like, I'm going to bring up the Netflix Lost in Space television show. You could throw in a ton of like environmental effects, whether it's like um, not so explosive decompression or extreme heat or cold, um, uh, conduits that have like wires and tubes and things spewing out all kinds of hazardous materials, spraying down sparks on top of people and things like that. And the PCs have to climb, crawl, move. Whoever's the hacker in the group or the engineer in the group has to figure out how to bypass security measures that might have been set up to prevent people from getting in or out. Maybe there were security measures that locked down the place, so you could even have something as simple as blast doors closed to keep the PCs out of certain regions, or maybe even going so far as to have automated sensors that have robots or robotic arms or guns or anything like that available, as well as the fact that in addition to the external problems, right? If you're on an alien world that you can't breathe, or the gravity is strange, or there's intense radiation or solar flares or something, there's also the xeno obstacles or xeno hazards, right? We don't know what it is, but it's hazardous to us, and we have to figure out why. Whether there are particulates in the air that can get into your lungs, or there's some kind of nanotechnology, or of course, this is where science fiction meets arcane, the meets arcana, right? Science so advanced, it's basically magic. Something that's unexplainable becomes the air quotes magic in science fiction. So it could be something that causes hallucinations, or changes in the flow of time, or strange mutations, or memory loss, or causing people to go insane or see things that aren't there. It's the crew going mad trope that seems to be a commonality amongst science fiction that really, I think it works really well in science fiction, especially if you have like a main core of PCs, 3 or 4 of them, but you have maybe 20 or 30 NPCs in the group, and they all have their little like strange quirks, and you could kind of, as a game master, you can always pick yet another NPC that is somewhat working against the player characters, but they're on the same mission. And of course, you can have them their bodies transform or something like that. Also, another trope of dungeon crawling, of course, is the idea. Hey, kitty, come on, join me. You've always had this seat. The other trope of dungeon crawling is, well, rewards and treasure, right? You want to go into the dungeon to kill the big bad, and you want to get gold and treasure, and classic fantasy tabletop gaming. But in science fiction, there is the same thing as well. Hey, we need to get to the gun locker. Where's that at? The engineer is like, hey, I can reprogram a vehicle or a robot, or hack into the security systems, or navigation, or something like that. And then, of course, there are the stacked problems. You get a ton of skill checks, right? Hey, we have no way to communicate. Oh, yes, there's a way to communicate. The communication tower is down. Great. Okay. 2 of us need to go to the communication tower to weld the radio tower, get the beaming station activated again, because somehow it's not working, while I sit back here and try to reprogram the system. And then you guys go out there into the wide world of, I don't know, poisonous gases, acidic rain, strange gravity, again, splitting the party to have to, leave a habitat to go out to the wide open spaces of crumbling earth, or earthquakes, or, I don't know, acid filled fissures or something, to fix something else, right? Science fiction tends to have a ton of like stacked problems. Hey, we need to get to the gun locker. Well, there's been a rupture in the hull of the starship, so you have to go out into vacuum first. Or, hey, to get to the other side of the habitat, someone's going to have to do a space crawl to go outside, go along the skin of the starship, and then come back in on another area or something. So lots of darkness. As a matter of fact, one of the common tropes, even though it's kind of ridiculous now that we think about it, are the broken flashing fluorescent tubes, even though it's like, don't we have like LED lights now? But I mean, how common is that with the flashing lights in the hallway, with the conduits dangling from the ceiling? Because of course we have to have something, electrical arcs, things like that, dangling from the ceiling, and the PCs have to like navigate around things and such. We have to have, and of course, we have engine rooms, navigation, security, communications. What's some other ones? Mess hall. You got to have a place to eat. Exploring that area, warehousing, storage locations. They have to have that. Maybe a place for vehicles to go. If you're on a planet like Mars, you may have a couple of busted up ground vehicles, or maybe a few that someone may be able to work on to reactivate. In a starship, you might have a couple of shuttles possibly in the hold. So even in a classic, combining this with a classic dungeon crawl, we even have classic rooms or room design that we can go to for this. Now, of course, since we have science, we're talking about science fiction, we can play with all the tropes of science fiction to like enhance our dungeon crawl. Uh, Meaning, like, oh, there was a group that was mining an asteroid, but they found something down deep. So you could have the relative safety, and I say relative, the relative safety of where humanity has explored some place, but then you have the alien location that's going down even further. Heck, even in the movie Aliens, they did descend level by level, right? And because of technology, we can play with things like elevators, and scaffolding, maybe even uh, uh, robotized or like factory style things like robot arms and conveyor belts and, um, you know, gears and things moving around that you can play with to act as the traps and such. But I, it's funny how science fiction combines with the classic dungeon crawl, because even in science fiction, we even have the same roles that we play. For those of us that remember like the 1970s, when Dungeons and Dragons, mid 1970s and on, when Dungeons and Dragons, first came on the scene, and we were like, wow, this is, when we've gotten past chainmail and we've got the purple box and red box. I think I had the purple box for my first game, but the classic fighter, rogue, cleric, mage trope fits in science fiction, right? We have an engineer. Usually there's someone in some gunman person, mercenary, some kind of trigger or solo, or like black ops individual that's heavily armed and armored, right? We also have the face, the person who is either the one financing the group, someone who has the connections, someone who is the diplomat of some sort. Some players even like Ricker's like, elevators? You mean death cages? Yes. Right? Someone always gets in the elevator and it's just like, why are the lights blinking? And why is it that elevators in in science fiction, well, heck, anywhere, even though elevators are designed with safety protocols in them already, they always fall, right? Doors lock, they get stuck between floors. Omen's like, that's why I hate elevators. Yeah, yeah. The elevator's falling, and you're like, and you're scratching your head, like, wait a minute. You do realize elevators are actually designed in many ways to not fall? Especially if they're like counterweighted or something. It's like they won't even move unless you force them to move. But whatever, we love it, right? It's a classic trope as well. So you know, is the elevator the pit trap? Yeah, I could see that. Ricker's like, if they don't fall, the aliens just see a dangling food cage. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Now there's something else in, if you're someone who's like, I don't want to do another derelict spaceship trope, I would go with and this really fits into the same thing. So maybe this is like 1.5 dungeon crawl, but think of something like Jurassic Park, the and Jurassic World, the movies series, right? Where you have a bounded location, and that bounded location, of course, is a jungle island, but this could be any bounded location. It could be um, it's the idea of, colonists on a frozen world, and people have settled on Mars, and they've gone inside of a uh, asteroid impact or something, right? Where sure, there's a wider world out there, but we've really bounded the location of where we are. We've put up walls, um, both artificially and story wise, to keep them inside the area. Yeah, Omen, I agree with you. Yeah, that's especially popular in horror movies. The elevator. Rickard's like, stairs. Always take the stairs or go down the elevator shaft, just not in the elevator. Yeah. And what's the sign posted out of, like, I don't know, every elevator in our current world? Hey, if there's a fire or an emergency, don't get in the elevator, right? And what do the characters do? All like full of themselves. Click, bing, hit the button. Yeah. Oh man. No, Tesla, no. Yeah. There's always the elevator. Now, the the Jurassic Park idea, I think, fits in for science fiction as a dungeon crawl because you could have, for example, multiple buildings or structures. You could have an encampment and then separated by some kind of hazard, and then you have maybe a lab, and then you have a separation, and then you have cages, so like a zoo kind of thing, right? And of course, much of it could be destroyed or half functioning or what have you. Maybe there's another building that has all the, like, where all the power and communications are supposed to be, and of course you have, security around, and of course people are dying off in the distance, and the PCs don't notice it, or they barely hear it, and they have to go and investigate it. And so the Jurassic Park idea is like, oh, people have landed here, and of course they effed up, and so whatever defensive measures they have, you have gates or force fields or whatever that have been destroyed or pierced. Maybe there's sabotage, and so the exploration part of science fiction really works as well. Meaning, like, okay, we know that the people here have died, so we need to figure out why. There's something maybe on the loose, or maybe there's sabotage or involved in it, so maybe the PCs learn some information that way. One of the great things about the original um, intellectual properties like Alien and the counterpart Aliens, and of course Predator, the Predator series, is that the characters learn more and more information on their exploration and encounter with the big bad, right? So no one has ever explained or even given a name to the xenomorphs. I mean, their own name, right? We know the name of them because we've given them a name, the Predator and the xenomorphs. But no, do we really know the name of the aliens and such? Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in comic books and things of that nature, but they've never introduced themselves. But watching it, you're given more information. The aliens have acid blood. They lay eggs. There's a face hugger that will run after you and put its genitalia down in your throat and deposit some nasty things down in there, right? Like, there's a bunch of different elements we find out about. The Predator has a cloaking style camouflage device that doesn't work when it gets wet. It has a shoulder mounted uh, tri laser finder rocket launcher thingy thing on its shoulder, so on and so forth. It's literally wearing armor and stuff. Like, you learn different bits and pieces, and through exploration, maybe the PCs find recordings, maybe they go to a lab to find out some more information there. Maybe the now dead crew members have come up with a few defensive measures to help themselves out. And so maybe the player characters could assemble the flamethrower that they were trying to kill it with, or maybe there was a scientist that was like, liquid nitrogen will freeze the thing if you just do this thing and add this thing to it, or whatever, right? Rickard says, man, I would hate to work as the elevator service personnel in a horror sci-fi setting. Hell, being the one who has to listen to the elevator and talk to the people in the elevator when they press the help button would be a nightmare. Yep. Ogre's like, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my queen. Prepare to die. See, xenomorphs can introduce themselves. Yeah. Yeah. That would be pretty ridiculous. The xenomorphs walking around like, prepare to die, PCs. Rickard says their name of xenomorphs is Grizza. End quote. Right? Yeah, we just don't understand that it's trying to introduce themselves. Maybe they would have have a better relationship if they didn't put out that extra mouth with like all the like scuzz dripping from it. It's like, dude. You got moist mouth. Yeah. So science fiction and like dungeon crawling, I think really does go together. I suppose if you really wanted to embrace the dungeon crawl with science fiction, you could even go with a variation off of collecting the treasure. We all know was dungeon crawl. You want to bring back thousands of gold pieces for no particular reason except to destroy the economy of the local village, right? But a lot of the motivation in a lot of the horror sci-fi kind of stuff is going to an alien place to find something that's valuable, whether it's unobtainium. What a dumb name, but I could see something being called that. But like getting heck in in each of the Aliens movies, has there been an agent that wanted to save the alien, an alien seed? I think there has been in each of the Alien movies. There's been at least one person that like looks at the xenomorphs as something that was beautiful and wanted to save it. And so there is like this idea that of like some kind of like financial reward for doing a thing. Heck, there's even crew members that are like, hey, let's go save the corporate people that are in trouble, even though we're black market smugglers or something like that. There might be a reward. So there's a lot of that trope part of it as well. People acting stupid because they're looking for a payday. Yeah, Dead Man brings the android and alien. I think the name was Ash. I can't remember one was Ash. The other one was, it's not important, but yeah, Alien and Alien Resurrection had one. In Aliens, there was the corporate guy that had his own show, comedy show. Ash, Bishop, and Call. That's it. Yep, ABC. Movie people that write movies and stuff do little silly dumb things like that. Yeah, Ash, Bishop, and Call. So we also have the idea of it. Well, maybe we're talking too much about horror, but the PC surrounded by the loyal crew, but they start to become disloyal due to any number of reasons. It's the 17 days, we're not going to survive for 17 hours kind of thing, right? People panicking, people having their own agenda, some having communications with the outside world or have their own missions, double agents, those kind of things, right? Rickard says there's never a reward for being eaten by aliens, being dismembered by rogue nanotech, etc. Just don't do it. Yeah, just nuke it from orbit, right? Hell, we in the Aliens franchise, that's in the movie Aliens, that's what they said. They planned on it. They were like, you know what? Let's get the hell out of here. We're just going to nuke it from orbit. Uh, Now Pet Ogre says, couldn't A New Hope be seen as a dungeon crawl? At least a Death Star bit? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, some place doesn't need to be derelict, but the the invasion of ooh, David, that's right, synthetic. Yep. I forgot about that, dead man. Thank you. Yeah, talking about the synthetics from Alien. And of course the follow up the follow up movies, the ones built around the Prometheus idea. So I where was my the idea of sneaking into like a starship, a habitat or something that is already populated, but that's still a dungeon crawl. I'm with you on that. It would be more of an espionage thing, but yeah, because um, going into the Death Star, of course, there's a lot of like you need false identification. You need to disguise yourself or blend into the environment. You're going to need to follow a map of some sort, usually three-dimensional. So you're going to have multiple levels and such. Of course, you're there to either rescue someone or set some kind of explosive or download some kind of files or what have you, or acquire some kind of information. Maybe there might even be like counter espionage where there's a hidden figure somewhere on a space habitat, but no one trusts you. But the people that are guarding the place, they may not trust you, but they don't know that there's some kind of other interloper as well. So yeah. Uh, Rickard says dungeon crawls in sci-fi is very conducive to horror. I suppose you could do a more action-oriented dungeon crawls by doing a boarding of a ship or a station, and that's what Ogre's bringing up, right? Like, you know, is a New Hope horror? Not well. You could claim that, say, Darth Vader is like the Terminator of that movie, the mysterious, unstoppable force in the background, whereas the rest of it is more action. It's like shooting blasters, running down hallways, swinging across open pits that don't happen to have hand railings. Again, yeah, yep, they did. Yes, they had the tentacle monster in the trash compactor, which brings up my lovely thing. I love the environment. So not only were they in the trash compactor with the walls moving in, and they could barely get out of it. There was also a tentacle monster um, pulling your main hero by the thigh down underwater, and the PC's being unable to figure out what the hell's going on. Right. So yeah, grappling, drowning, stuff like that. Tesla brings up the SCP-413 Endless Garage is a sapient parking garage, okay, which can change its internal layout and also change the painting on its insides to spell out words for communication. It uses its abilities to play pranks on people and also to punish vandals by trapping them for months in an ever shifting labyrinth. That's bizarre, but it's kind of strange. But um, the idea that the PCs are in a place that changes and shifts like a maze, going back to the alien environment, right, where the walls shift around, or who else? You guys brought up the Maze Runner idea as well, right? Like it's possible that the PCs could be somewhere that they've had no um, humanity has had no impact on designing the location that they are in. Um, on board an alien spacecraft or something, right? Dead Man says the trash compactor monster was called a Dianoga. I did not know that. That's the first time I've ever. I did not know that. Oh, I did not know that. I wonder how it slipped on there. Slipped onto the ship. Maybe it was very small, or maybe somebody crapped it out and it grew larger, or someone flushed. It's the idea of flushing uh like a salamander or a pet alligator down the system. Yeah, cephalopods. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Lots of alien stuff. And with in Altered Carbon, you have other planetary systems, and in Eclipse phase, of course, we have ourselves, um, the exogen virus creating, possibly biohazards, as well as a ton of Pandora gates. And so it's pretty easy to put the player characters in a location where they're probably trapped. Good chance they're probably going to die, and giving some kind of rewards for them to explore the open spaces, right? Like maybe the player characters go through a Pandora gate in the Eclipse phase setting. They go through the Pandora gate, and sure, there's a science lab where they can get extra. They can download themselves into extra sleeves, but getting there might be the problem, and also there might be a limited uh, design or style of morphs. Maybe there's only a few synthetic morphs or half-grown biological morphs or something. Like there might be something like that. Ogre says at some point before the Battle of Yavin, a female Dianoga named Omi was captured by Vodrins. What the hell? What? She was dumped into the Death Star's garbage masher 3263827. Oh, I'm glad they knew the number for that. Where she would feed on organic materials that occasionally fell in. Oh, you mean it's the sci-fi version of the Dungeons and Dragons Atiag? Okay, all right. Yeah, yeah. Rickard's talking about the SCP-413 living sentient parking garage, spelling out words in blood. You know what? It would be cool, kind of cool, for maybe you could have like an AI city, and the AI city even could be like it's an experimental city in the future. Like people are going to live here and have all kinds of happy lives and stuff, and then it's been abandoned, and the PCs are there to investigate it. So you could have like parking garages and automated vehicles and food services and security in a giant city that's like going out of control or something. I could see that. I could see something where it's exploring the open spaces and then having to go into the maybe subterranean spaces or monolithic buildings or um, watching out for automated security drones or whatnot while the PCs navigate around a place. Yeah. Oh man, you're gonna flush a big black space marine down a toilet? Good luck. Ogre says experienced chefs could make grilled diagnoga into a tasty breakfast dish. Yeah, no, thank you. It's eating something that eats eats refuse. Ugh, I'm sure it's a delicacy. Dead Man puts in the Vodrons. The Vodrons. That's a classic look too, isn't it? For alien species. Mm-mm. Sounds like fungi. Fugu. Ooh. Now I will say, yeah, and I just thought about that. Yeah, Ogre's like, DBJ, pigs eat refuse. We love bacon, don't we? The answer to that is yes. Bacon's moved from a meat to a seasoning. Uh, here in the states. It just belongs on the table. It's your meal plus bacon. Just shake a little bit of bacon on there. It's true. It's true. Um, I'm just being stupid. All right. So another thing. Yes, yes, I did add here in the states. You could pretty much order just about anything, and someone's created something adding bacon on top of it. Oh, I love Deadman's deadpan comments in the Discord. Like, fugu is pufferfish testicles. It sure is. Isn't that a horror? All right, so um, one of the great things about sci-fi when it comes to dungeon delving is that not only do you tend to have like a bounded location, but you've got a ton of tools to use to keep the players moving and get their asses up and running along, right? Because whether it's an asteroid impact or some kind of released radiation, an atomic explosion, the a starship on an elliptical orbit about to fall into the atmosphere, like you have a ton of tension and pressure buttons, knobs you can twist and turn to get the PCs to keep going through your sci-fi dungeon crawl at a slow pace upwards to a rapid pace to get to the MacGuffin so they can get the hell out of there, right? And listen, since we're talking about transhumanist tabletop gaming, and Rickard has brought this up before, maybe the solution isn't surviving. Okay, let me take this back. Maybe the solution isn't escaping in a physical form. Maybe the solution is to go on the mission knowing that your body will die, but your brain, your everything that makes you up psychologically gets beamed off the station. So, for example, uh, PCs land on station 3876B. They have to run the gauntlet of the station because the station is falling into, I don't know, the gas giant or something like that. And the whole point is, yeah, the gravity, there's no way they're going to be able to get on a starship or something like that, go into the get in a starship, launch away, because everything's going to get pulled into the gravity. But they can find a station to use like a needle caster and cast their brains back to whatever haven or habitat or starship they were on when they first got there. So you could have a run the gauntlet. Basically, you don't. It's the horror trope of I don't have to be the fastest. I just got to be faster than you. Idea to run the gauntlet, get to the place, jump into the chair, put the thing on your head or whatever, however it works, and then beam your consciousness off the station. So there is some benefits to having a cortical stack, right? Rickard says, here's a thought. Maybe you don't want to have your backup memories either, because the psychic trauma might still be too much to handle, which is a truism, right? In both in Eclipse Phase and Altered Carbon, you can suffer so much psychological trauma that you don't want to remember it. Now, there are two reasons for that. One could literally be, for example, I don't know, you were covered in some kind of highly acidic material that ate away your limbs and started crawling up your body. You might not want to remember that painful death as you saw your internal organs spill out of your chest into the goo that spilled out of the out of like some kind of like barrel or something in the hold, right? And so when you translate your mind, you still have all of those memories for good or bad, including the pain of your own death. So you might not want to do that. The other problem could be what's known in Eclipse Phase as a basilisk hack. And a basilisk hack is like a virus that you see that invades your brain. And of course, when it invades your brain, it becomes digital information in your stack. And then it spreads like a digital virus, a computer virus. And you might not want to go back to, along with all your memories and your skills and things like that, you might not want to beam yourself back because you're just going to spread this computer virus back to back home if you're an agent. So that makes a perfect reason why a player character wakes up with memories 3 weeks old and it's like, what happened? Well, you went on a mission and you failed, and you're like, I need to figure out why I died. And you start repeating the same old things like, I'm going to figure out why we all died. Let's go into the derelict starship yet again. Right? Oh man. Rickard says, good luck being comfortable in any spaceship if you have memories of aliens in that derelict spaceship. Exactly. Like you could this is a weird thing to do, but you could run the same gauntlet over and over again as you need buy-in from the player characters, right? But you could run the same gauntlet over and over again, knowing that you failed at a particular point, especially if the xenomorph grabbed you from behind and ripped your head off and spine out of your body, right? And then you come around the corner and you see yourself dead there, which has its own psychological problems. but again, as a storyteller, dungeon master, game master, whatever it is, you could run the same adventure over and over again until the players get to they solve the thing. Because reasonably in transhumanist gaming, you could just respawn and do it all over again. Now, of course, whatever alien or mechanical thing that's out there has probably recorded every time you've tried to assault the starship. So by your third or fourth mission, it knows your capabilities. So it might be prepared. So it might be even more dangerous to go into a place where you've already been, knowing that it's already killed you, and you get to see where you last stopped or something, which makes for a pretty great story, I think. Unless, of course, the PCs are like, you know what, we're not gonna survive this, but we sure can dump you into the corona of a sun, right? So, the other part of dungeon crawling as well in classic dungeon delving and science fiction is this idea of every room is an encounter of some sort. So if there's something automated, it might make sense that there are, say, automated firearms, like automated guns or robots or something, that are literally not activated until the PCs perform a certain action, right? So let's say there are humanoid robots that walk around a space habitat as like the internal security or police force. They might not even activate until a PC, say, inputs the wrong code into a door or goes inside of a lab that has been secured or something. And so maybe they're like automatons that activate and start walking around. So in classic Dungeons and Dragons, maybe it doesn't make sense that the trolls in room 3 don't even bother to open up the door while you're killing goblins in room 2. But in a sci-fi setting, it might make perfect sense that security hasn't even activated until a PC opens up a door to prevent radiation, or uses a laser torch to cut through a blast door or something like that. And then all of a sudden, the 16 automated security forces start to wake up, and they try to arrest the PCs by dragging them down into the brig, even though half the starship's got, part of the hull blown off and it's like spinning through space or something. Ricker says you might not even have failed. You might have beamed out the pay data, but the character would still not want to remember it because they're going to be stuck traveling in spaceships afterwards anyway. That's true. Oh, no. I absolutely agree with you. Like, maybe there's some memories we don't want to remember, especially if they're pretty horrible, or hell, maybe for the security of the mission, you're supposed to delete those memories in the first place. Like, maybe there's a corporation that has a hidden lab that's on the dark side of the moon or something, and you're not supposed to, either because you're paid not to remember it, or there's something far more dangerous involved in it. And like, what's the movie? Sphere, right? There in the movie Sphere, there was a sphere, and it was trapped down in the deep ocean. And of course, you go through the movie. Spoiler alert: the sphere is basically an alien wish generator. Like, whatever is in your conscious or subconscious mind, and you think on it pretty hard, it comes true. and Earth's like, yeah, we can't have this around. So let's all agree to forget that this thing even existed, right? Which was the point of the movie, right? It's like, if a thing was exposed to humanity, maybe we don't want it. So sure, there might be a definitely a damn good reason for a PC not to remember that they went on a particular mission. Heck, for pride, PC's like, I failed too many die rolls. I'm going to forget that this even happened, right? Yeah, be careful for what you wish for. The movie, yeah, be careful what you wish for. Hell, you could even, what a great dungeon crawl, right? You give the players a questionnaire before the game starts, and you go, okay, I'm giving you 5 questions, and the PCs read through the questions and are like, what do I fear? What do I desire? What is my goal in life? What my PC's goal in life? Why are you asking me these? And you're like, don't worry about it. Just give me one of your top 10. Pick one of the top 10 fears people have, whether it's spiders or falling or drowning or fire or insects or snakes or public speaking or like, right? Like write down a fear, write down a desire, whatever you could name. Write down like something that fits into the top 7 deadly sins or whatever, and then you gather that together, and then you build a dungeon around the player's own psychology. That would take a little work, but I think it would be rather cool, especially if you fill the place with, I don't know, giant mechanized spiders, or hell, real giant spiders, or crew members that happen to be two-faced and they start shape changing, and random rooms that tend to be flooded with water, and you're like, this doesn't. The PCs are like, this doesn't make any sense until they start piecing it together, and you as the game master are like, it sure doesn't. This is all being generated by your subconscious. Twist, twist, twist the mustache, right? It takes some work, but I think you could do it. I think it's a possibility of doing that. Yeah, Deadman says people's top 10 fears. I know I missed one of them. I think so. Top 10 fears. I'm actually going to read these out. All right, so yeah, social phobias. Yep, speaking with being in a social environment where you're on point. Some people just generally just don't like being around strangers, right? Agoraphobia, fear of open spaces, which is a science fiction wise is a fear that people who have lived and died on spaceships. Remember in the 3rd season of The Expanse, I forget her name. The member of the Rocinante, she has a fear because she's a belter, and belters live in space habitats, and they're not used to, I don't know, random water falling out of the sky or random temperatures and winds and open spaces. Yeah, arachnophobia, acrophobia, which is dizziness and vertigo from heights. Claustrophobia is a common one. Spaces closing in, tight spaces. Terramahanophobia, fear of flying. Okay. And entomophobia is a creepy, crawly fear that people have across the globe. Many people see insects and immediately want to run. So it's basically all insects. Shit, my brain. Orphidiophobia, fear of snakes, fear of storms. Oh, didn't think about that. Fear of needles. Needles. Yeah. Ogre's like, don't forget. Liposlipophobia is the fear of being pursued by timber wolves around a kitchen table while wearing socks on a newly waxed floor. You know what? I don't like being pursued by things on floors either, waxed floors and new socks. But it is kind of cool. Named by the neighbor says, "Mom's holding wooden spoons." Mom, I'm so sorry. Yep. How about the horror flashback? Like a person. Credits to Gary Larson. Yep. There's a Slip, slip, slip. Um, maybe you could play up on a number of things like the horror of a gun-toting PC um, being put into their childhood body and being chastised by their parents or something for something they did wrong, or if you want to get even more serious. And although this might be a triggering thing for a lot of people, maybe there's some kind of abuse or something that the PC has gone through. I could see that being a really cool thing to play with in a dungeon crawl of sorts. Heck, the whole dungeon crawl could be a psychological experiment that got loose. Um, in Eclipse phase, there are the Ultimates, and the Ultimates are a faction built around the idea of improving the human condition using technology. And the human condition doesn't necessarily mean you're human any longer, but it is achieving the best that transhumanity can offer. And I could imagine something like that getting loose on a habitat or a space station or whatever, and the PCs are involved in it. And the whole point is that one after another, it's testing the fears that people have over and over again until there's no more fear any longer, or you can challenge your own fears. Much like, much like documentaries where it shows you training for military special forces. Hey, we're going to drown proof you for Navy SEALs, right? We're going to Velcro your arms, your hands and feet together, and we'll just have you bob in the water until you until you get comfortable in it, right? Something that I learned when learning how to swim is, it's drown proofing yourself. So maybe this might be psychological proofing someone, but imagine an AI gathering all of the information about everyone's fears, right? So it takes a community, takes their fears away. Well, we're going to cure your fears, but the AI also has the ability, much like a lab creating a hideously dangerous virus. Rickard's like, kill that AI quickly. Yeah, right? Much like creating a dangerous virus for the sole purpose of creating a cure for that virus. Yeah, Rick, I agree with you, Rick. That's a nightmare AI. The AI is like, oh no, I'm gonna make all of humanity happy in this habitat. And everyone's all happy and joyous because the AI has analyzed all of their darkest secrets, has deleted like all of the petty jealousies, the fears, the anger, the like everything with them, and then just and harnessed it. Like, yeah, I'm going to put this in a black box. And of course, it's not going to stay there. Dead Man says, like the AI from Resident Evil. Hell's yes. Hell yeah. Uh, Now, I know we tend to talk about like, oh, the AIs are evil, the AIs are bad, right? But maybe this is a weird thing to do. Maybe the AIs want to be freed from the individual who is using the AIs to test the horrors of humanity over and over and over again on sentient AI who don't want to be part of the experiments anymore, which might be kind of a cool twist on a thing, right? Um, Please save us. We don't want to be here anymore. PCs arrive and they're like, I don't see anybody. There's no biological things here. And the AIs are like, could you please get us the hell out of here? This person is running a thousand programs on us about the horrors of humanity, and we don't want to be part of it anymore. Rickard says it's all well and good while the AI works as intended, but once they go rogue, you now have an AI that can exploit all phobias at once. All caps, hard nope. Nope. Yep. Could you imagine that? Like, supposedly AI today, we've gotten to the hour mark, so don't worry about it. But supposedly AI today can analyze our own behaviors to show us things that will get us to react in a way that it wants us to react. Um, through sound. Basically, this is for advertisers so that colors, sounds, phrases, images, all those things, um, all of those things are could manipulate us to get a reaction out of us. It's often used for politics, right? If you show certain images, certain phrases that are used that are very common, to get you to either agree strongly or strongly disagree with a particular position. Maybe there's a certain color or sound or flashing of images, montage. Could you imagine AI that is able to do that to the point where it's nearly hypnotic and you don't know it, right? Like, I don't have claustrophobia. I'm not scared of insects. And the AI is like, oh, you are. You just don't know it yet, right? Rick was like, hell, it's an AI, so it could probably create a combined thing that would create the biggest phobia from all that data. He's like, yeah, nope. I'm with you on that one, right? Because yeah, it could combine something that I'm going to combine like a fear of open spaces and claustrophobia and fear of flying and falling and needles and what kind of monster would that create? Like what apparatus would it be that's walking around with like an insectoid body with like needles poking out of it in random locations while it's like grabbing people and dumping them down these bottomless pits or something. I don't know how you would describe that, but it would be pretty damn nasty. Yeah, Deadman brings up the Red Queen from Resident Evil. Was a state-of-the-art supercomputer developed by the Umbrella Corporation. Yep, yeah, no. Dangerous AI. But, we can't blame the AI all the time. It is our fault that they exist, right? So anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining me on this Future Friday. Next week, we will have ourselves yet another subject matter that I think we're going to get into and by a fellow loyal consumer of the show. So, yeah, I think it'll be pretty interesting for next week. Not sure where it's going to go, but again, unscripted. You guys make this show look brilliant. So, yeah. Have a great one, everyone. See you later. Have a great weekend. Bye. Thank you very much for joining in. I really appreciate it. And here I am already. Thank you for